You're listening to Himalayan Adventure by Vaile. Chapter 22.
Twigger patted the icy blue wall of rock and stared straight up its awesome height. "Holy crap, that's high," he breathed, shaking his head. For the past 3 hours, the group had navigated their way up an increasingly steep slope until they were face to face with this giant block of ice. Burnmaster glanced up. "Forget about how big it is and buckle on your crampons," he said. "You'll have plenty of time to think about how big it is on the way up." Isabelle frowned. "I thought you said we shouldn't look down," she said. "If you don't look down, you'll miss half the adventure," Burnmaster explained. "Isn't that what you're all here for, an adventure? So now you're saying we should look down?" she asked carefully. Burnmaster secured his crampons and stood up. "I'm saying it's your choice," he replied, "but if you don't look down, you might miss out on an experience you'll never have again." "Spoken like a true climber," said Pemba. Crampons, which were evil-looking steel spikes that flare outwards and fit onto the tread of climbing boots, were a new experience for Twig. He stood up, tested their grip on the firm snow, and grinned. "These could do some major damage," he exclaimed. "Imagine this, crampon karate, they should make a movie. What do you reckon?" He raised one leg in a half-hearted karate kick and, weighed down by his rucksack, toppled over backward. Isabelle laughed. "You're an idiot," she said. Gulbenkian helped him up. "How about you keep both feet on the ground from now on?" he stuttered. "In the movie, they won't be wearing heavy rucksacks," mumbled Twig. "All right, no more messing around," Burnmaster declared. "It's real climbing from here on up, and I want us all to get up this mountain in one piece. I'll go first and establish a line of ice screws. Everybody clip your ropes into them as you pass them. If you fall, the ice screws and ropes will save you. We're also going to rope up in pairs," he continued. "I'll rope up to Isabelle, Gull to Laheeti, Twigger to Pemba." Turning to the GXs, he said, "You guys can do, whatever it is that you do when you climb mountains." Flat Top nodded. Twig considered the climbing arrangements. Isabelle had Burnmaster and Laheeti had Gull. He eyed the Nepalese boy warily. "How much climbing experience do you have?" he asked suspiciously. Pemba smiled easily and said, "Oh, I've climbed halfway up Everest a couple of times." In fact, he had been to the summit 3 times, but each trip had been with Zaw, so he wanted to avoid talking about it. Twig didn't look convinced. "So, do you know what you are doing?" he pressed. Pemba lodged the tip of his crampon in the ice wall with a practiced kick to test its sharpness. He nodded and said, "I'll follow Burnmaster. You follow me, and before you know it, we'll all be standing on the top of the Yala Peak." Twig nodded and muttered, "Well, I hope Nicky Zipster is standing there as well." "Amen to that," grunted Burnmaster as he drove one ice axe into the wall, followed by a crampon, and started climbing. The slack in the rope between her and Burnmaster rapidly disappeared. Isabelle stared up at Burnmaster's bright yellow pants almost directly above her. "I guess this is it," she said, slamming her axe into the ice as hard as she could. Its silver tip dug in deep and stayed there. "Good luck," Gull stammered. "Thanks," Isabelle replied. "Will you catch me if I fall?" Gull hesitated, then said, "Only if I'm not falling at the same time." Isabelle had to make her peace with that answer. "Well, that's something at least," she remarked. Her first dozen steps were slow and steady. The crampons were easier to use than she thought. Each kick lodged them firmly in the wall, and after a while she began to trust their grip on the blue ice. After 10 minutes she looked down and saw Gull and Laheeti climbing up after her. Raising her eyes, she saw the next ice screw and clipped into it. Would it really hold her weight if she fell? She wondered. Burnmaster had shown her one earlier. It looked like a bolt, not much bigger than her index finger. Once inside the wall, it was just a small silver stud on the surface of the ice. It looked far too small to support her, let alone somebody as big as Burnmaster. Her pulse quickened. Best not to dwell on such things, she thought, and took a deep breath. By the time she reached Burnmaster, her shoulders were feeling sore from the effort of swinging the ice axe. She rested for 10 minutes on a ledge and then continued on. She soon found a comfortable rhythm with her axe and crampons. Swing, kick, heave up, swing, kick, heave up. It was quiet, just her own breathing and the scrape of steel on ice. It relaxed her, calmed her somehow, and allowed her to appreciate the amazing panoramic view of the distant mountains. The condensation in the air tasted crisp on her lips. The sky was crystal blue, and the weather was fine. She was on the side of a mountain in the highest mountain range on Earth. This was why she had come to the Himalayas. 10 meters below, Pemba was staring straight down the length of rope that connected him to Twigger. The islander boy was ascending very slowly, but so far he had not made any mistakes. That was fine by Pemba because mistakes made on the mountainside could be unforgiving. In his many years living in the Himalayas with the yeti, he had seen scores of adventurers killed or injured by falling off a mountain. He had appeared very relaxed when Twig asked about his climbing experience, but in truth on every climb Zaw had been there to get him out of trouble. But now he had no yeti climbing companion. If Twig lost his grip and fell, Pemba was not completely confident he could support the extra weight. Looking past Twig, he saw the jutting rocks and ice further below. Yep, it would be a bone-crunching stop at the bottom if they fell. He wondered if Zaw and Abby would be around to pick up the pieces. He had no doubt the yetis were trailing him, but he had no idea how close they were. He certainly hadn't seen or heard them, but that wasn't surprising. In the mountains, a yeti was virtually undetectable if it wanted to be. Pemba would have loved to contact Zaw on the sat phone, but with everybody moving so close together in the storm, there were no opportunities to make a sneaky call. No matter, he thought, the top can't be too far away. Just don't fall off the mountain, Twig, and everything will be just fine. The GXs had taken Burnmaster's suggestion and roped together as a trio. They were the last group to start climbing, but at the pace they were going they would soon catch up to Gull and Laheeti, who were immediately above them. Maine liked the idea of being roped to Flat Top because it meant the aggressive GX was under control, like a bulldog on a tight leash. It was an apt comparison because Flat Top was climbing faster than Mohawk and Maine, and the rope between them all was being stretched to breaking point. Maine had twice told his brother to slow down, but it was no use. Flat Top was climbing like a man possessed. At first Maine put his brother's enthusiasm down to good soldiering. They were trained to give every mission 110%, and the North Korean Army's brainwashing was still strong in Flat Top's mind. But after watching him for a while, Maine wasn't so sure. Flat Top looked happy. He was enjoying the climb and having fun. That grimace on his face was not anger but a broad smile of exhilaration. He had discovered something he liked to do other than kill things. This was completely unexpected, and Maine wondered if something inside his brother had changed, or if it was just a passing moment. An hour later, the clear blue skies that had so enamored Isabelle at the start of the climb began to fill with dark gray clouds. Like an incoming tide, they swept in from the north, blotting out the sun and casting a shadow over everything. To Isabelle's eyes, they swirled over the Yala Peak like a giant pair of lips puckering up to kiss the earth. The clouds brought a wind that raked across Isabelle's face like icy razor blades. Visibility rapidly reduced to 50, then 25, then less than 10 meters. Shortly after that, a raging storm descended on the mountain. The teenagers' progress, which wasn't very fast to begin with, slowed considerably. Burnmaster clambered onto a broad ledge that overlooked a deep crevasse and waited for the others to catch up. The crevasse was one of many that he had hoped to examine for signs of Nicky Zipster, but the storm now made that impossible. If she had fallen into a crevasse, there was a slim chance that she was still alive. He knew climbers who had fallen into crevasses and lasted for many days, with injuries, before being rescued. He was confident that if he could find her, he could help her, but the deteriorating weather prevented him from searching the mountainside the way he wanted to. Frustrated, he whacked his ice axe against his crampons, knocking off clumps of snow. The search for Nicky was now postponed. His first priority was to get his climbing companions safely to the top of the mountain. It took a while for everybody to climb up to the ledge where Burnmaster was waiting. Huddled close together, they had to yell to hear one another in the howling wind. Burnmaster explained that they were about halfway up the mountain, and in a few hours the sun would set. He would lead them to a place higher up that would allow them to safely set up their tents for the night. "You mean we're going to sleep on the mountainside?" yelled Twig. "Isn't that a bad idea?" "What happens if we roll over and fall off the mountain?" Burnmaster shrugged. "It's either that or stand right here all night," he replied. "On the plus side," yelled Isabelle, "this storm is so loud we won't be able to hear Flat Top snoring." The giant GX glared at her. "How much further up?" asked Gull. "Not too far," Burnmaster answered. "Just take it slow and we'll all get there before sunset." They set off, one at a time, in the same order of ascent as before. With no panoramic views to distract them, they climbed steadily. Burnmaster stopped periodically and noted their progress with approval. The storm continued, unabated, for the remainder of the afternoon. Eventually they arrived at a broad, icy plateau and fought to raise their tents in the terrific wind. As darkness fell, they ate a quick meal, then curled up in their sleeping bags. The storm wailed against their tents. Nobody slept very much. The morning brought little change in the weather. Burnmaster had hoped the storm would blow itself out, but the dawn light revealed the great expanse of gray clouds still covering the sky. Snowflakes whirled through the air, sticking to the climbers' clothes as they packed up the tents. Everybody set off in silence, trudging gloomily up a steep slope that led off the plateau. Isabelle, Laheeti, and Twig stayed close together. They had no regrets, but the shine was starting to wear off the adventure. The others had their heads down, doggedly continuing on. Only Flat Top seemed unaffected by the weather. They climbed all morning and into the early afternoon. The sun remained hidden behind the clouds, and Isabelle began to lose track of time. She kept looking at her wristwatch to see how long they had been climbing. At the next rest stop, she asked Burnmaster how much further they had to go. He brushed the snowflakes from his face and pointed a small distance up the slope. "That's the top right there," he remarked. The top turned out to be further than they both thought, and it took them the remainder of the afternoon to get there. The weather and the poor night's sleep were taking their toll. Nobody needed to be told that the search for Nicky Zipster had been put on hold. Once again, they struggled to pitch their tents in the teeth of the blizzard. When they had done so, Pemba excused himself to answer the call of nature. He was reluctant to remain in the storm, but he needed to make contact with Zaw and Abby. He moved away from the tents and dialed Zaw's number. His lips felt numb as he spoke on the sat phone. "How far up the mountain are you guys?" he muttered. "All the way up the mountain," replied Zaw, as if the answer could be anything else. "We've dug a snow cave a few hundred meters from your camp." "Well done getting up the mountain in this weather, by the way, not bad for a human." Abby was sitting beside him, listening. The cave, about 1.5 meters high and 4 meters deep, was dark save for the sat phone's illuminated buttons and the yeti's bright blue eyes. "Thanks," Pemba said dryly. "To be honest, I was a bit worried. I was roped to Twigger, who has no climbing experience. If he made one wrong move." He left the sentence hanging. "And you've still got to climb down," laughed Zaw. "Don't remind me," Pemba grumbled. "How does Burnmaster plan to find Nicky Zipster in this weather?" asked Zaw. "He wants to wait it out," Pemba replied. "No surprises there," Zaw remarked. "It might take days, though." "I know," Pemba said. "That's why I want you guys to look for her instead." Zaw made a face. "Are you kidding?" he groaned. "I'm staying put right here. It's damn cold out there." "I know, I'm standing in it right now," Pemba retorted. "So you agree with me," Zaw exclaimed. "Come on, this blizzard is nothing to a yeti and you know it," Pemba pressed. "Then why did Abby and I bother to dig a snow cave?" Zaw snapped. Pemba sighed. His gloved hands felt numb. He wriggled his fingers to keep the circulation flowing. "You know what I mean," he said. "You can handle this weather better than a human." "That's easy to say when you're planning on staying in a nice tent until the storm passes," Zaw muttered. "Would you stop complaining and just do it?" Pemba scowled. "Our job, in case you've forgotten," Zaw explained, "is to make sure Burnmaster and his companions have a safe time in Nepal, find absolutely no evidence that Yeti exist, and leave empty-handed. I don't remember there being any requirement to find Nicky Zipster." Pemba wasn't giving up. "In case you didn't think it through," he replied tartly, "this mountain is the most dangerous place Burnmaster and the others have come to since arriving in Nepal. So the sooner they find Nicky Zipster, the sooner they can get out of here. This storm prevents them from looking for Nicky, but you guys can. Comprendi?" Zaw was unmoved. "Just because I can search for Nicky Zipster in this blizzard doesn't mean I want to," he said flatly. His sister gave him a hard stare, and he added, "Besides, it's not so dangerous for Burnmaster and the others up here." "You said they've got plenty of supplies, right? What about Nicky?" asked Pemba. "I bet she's run out of supplies." "Would you forget about Nicky Zipster?" Zaw exclaimed. "She's not our responsibility. If she went climbing on her own and got herself in trouble, that's her problem, not ours." Pemba cleared his throat, sending a cackle of static down the phone line. "This sat phone connection must be bad," he said, "because I thought I just heard you say you were going to let a missing climber die. But you can't have said that because it would be contrary to the most fundamental aspects of the Yeti credo." "She's not a missing climber, she's a possibly missing climber," Zaw stated. "Don't overcook this, Pemba. We have no idea if Nicky is up here. We don't even know if she's in trouble. There's every chance she's back in Kathmandu by now, teaching a class at her university. So don't pull that Yeti credo crap on me." "I'll go," Abby said quietly. Zaw looked at his sister in surprise. "What?" he muttered. "I said I'll go," Abby repeated. "Pemba's right. If Nicky's up here, it's better for everybody if we find her as soon as possible." She moved towards the cave's entrance. "It's almost dark out there," Zaw protested. Abby shrugged. "So what?" she said. Pemba heard what Abby said. "You should be going too," he commented to Zaw. "Forget it," Zaw replied. He slid down the wall of the snow cave into a comfortable lying position, then said, "She'll be back in a few hours, empty-handed of course, you'll see."
That is the end of this chapter. To listen to the next chapter on YouTube or to purchase the digital ebook from Amazon, see the links in the description.